Opportunity won't wait. Don't miss your chance to own the metal powering the tech revolution. Silver isn't just shiny, it's indispensable. It fuels clean energy, drives electric vehicles, and powers cutting-edge tech innovation. Here's the catch. Global demand is skyrocketing, but supplies are dwindling. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com to invest in the metal that's shaping tomorrow's breakthroughs. As a bonus, open a qualified account and receive 2 5-ounce Silver America the Beautiful coins absolutely free. Silver powers progress, and progress powers your profit. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com. Joining us now is Dave Smith, husband, father, comedian, and libertarian, host of Part of the Problem podcast. Dave, I want to have you on the program because I want to sufficiently celebrate the pardon of Ross Ulbricht with somebody who understands the issue. I've been pushing for Ross very, very hard. In fact, it was my greatest failure of the first Trump administration. The last couple of weeks, I tried so hard to get him out of federal prison. Ross Ulbricht is a free man with a full and unconditional pardon. Please educate our audience, Dave. Who is Ross Ulbricht? What was he convicted of? What is the significance of this pardon?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Charlie. And I appreciate your work on this issue as well. A lot of people, were really in President Trump's ear about this case. Ross Ulbricht was he was essentially convicted of starting a website. Now, the feds would say that he was convicted of like money laundering or drug dealing, but the logic of it would essentially be like if you were to say on Craigslist, there's illicit stuff going on. But this wasn't just the government shutting down Craigslist. This was the government arresting Craig and giving him 2 life sentences plus 40 years when he had not committed a violent crime at all. And it was just so preposterous. I saw Michael Knowles was tweeting about this, and I went back and forth with him a little bit. And by the way, I like Michael Knowles. I'm not like knocking him, but he was kind of saying, I understand why libertarians are supporting this, but why do conservatives care about this guy who created like a website where drugs were being sold on it? And I think that it's interesting because I've been listening to a few minutes of your show as I was waiting here. And I think that you kind of laid it all out already. It's because, look, first of all, conservatives, the highest priority should be conserving liberty. And aside from that,
100%.
look, your framing of 2020 was spot on. I mean, this was a color-coded revolution that we just lived through. It had all the earmarks of a color-coded revolution, I'll say,
yes.
To borrow the Fed's terminology. But look, first of all, the judge in the case, she was a woke judge who said at one point that if a drug dealer in the Bronx had been caught, they'd have the book thrown at them. Therefore, we're going to make an example out of this kid. Like, it was this totally backward, racist woke logic that we should punish this kid for the color of his skin. And I've met his mother several times. She's been all over the place for the last decade. Lynn Ulbricht just tirelessly advocating for her son. The fact that Donald Trump, just ended this poor woman's nightmare and just freed a kid. Look, man, I mean, I know I'm a hardcore libertarian, and I know that there are some issues where conservatives and libertarians disagree, but I mean, the idea of giving somebody a double life sentence plus 40 years, can't we all agree that that should be reserved for like violent criminals, murderers, people who abuse children, something like that? The idea that a guy committed a website, he did nearly 11 years in prison for it. Thank you, President Trump, and God bless him for freeing this guy.
Yeah, one more detail on this. And by the way, this is part of the coalition. So you're going to have libertarians as part of a coalition. You're going to have more aggressive people on foreign policy, which I'm not with them on this. You have to build a coalition, and you have to have non-negotiable principles that when they're broken, they're off the team. Like John Bolton is never coming back on the team. That's just not going to happen. Liz Cheney's never come back on the team. But let me just emphasize one other thing, though, is that the website was operating. Shouldn't it have been protected theoretically by Section 230. For example, Mark Zuckerberg is not going to go to jail, nor should he if somebody uses WhatsApp to traffic drugs, which of course it's probably happening, right? Or if somebody uses Instagram or Facebook to illegally smuggle guns. So why wasn't Ross Ulbricht afforded the same Section 230 protections that the biggest biggest tech companies are given on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and the answer to it is essentially that he started a market. He was a big Ron Paul supporter, and this is why a lot of libertarians, got behind him, kind of felt like he was one of us. But what he was trying to do was start a marketplace where you could trade in Bitcoin, and it would be away from government surveillance or government control. And so this is why they went after him and made an example. I mean, look, first of all, you're absolutely right. He should have been protected by 230, but none of these other people who played ball with the previous regimes nobody's thinking about going after Zuckerberg like this. I mean, I said this kind of tongue in cheek, but I was saying on Twitter the other day, I mean, like a whole lot of people launder money and buy prostitution and drugs with cash, but we're not locking up the Fed chairman over it, which, by the way, that one I might support doing. But I might be convinced on this logic if that's what we were doing. But that's one of the things that I think conservatives should really pay attention to, right? It's this anarcho-tyranny that we've been living under for so many years now, where you have these laws or whatever on the books, but then who do they go after versus who they don't go after? I mean, you see this all over the place, right? In California, in many of these blue cities, they're not going to go after the people doing carjackings. They're not going to go after the people stealing, strong arm robbing stores, but let a property owner with a legal firearm try to defend themselves against one of these criminals, and they will throw the entire book against that person. A lot of this would be cleaned up if they just let the Second Amendment take care of this stuff and let citizens protect their own property. But so that's what you have here in this Ross Ulbricht case, a case where they targeted this guy in a way that they would never have gone after others for the exact same, as you pointed out. Zuckerberg just admitted the other day when he did this turnaround, which I was happy to see, that, yeah, we got a real problem with child trafficking on this site. And we all probably want to take measures to make sure that child trafficking is eliminated, but no one even thinks Zuckerberg should go to prison for life over it, because that's madness.
2 life sentences. And the other element here that you touched on, Dave, of why they went after Ross with such ferocity was because he was a pioneer of cryptocurrency. And you got to give Trump credit in the libertarian world, is that he really has decided to tell the Jamie Dimons to go pound sand. We are seeing an ascendant type of public policy portfolio where cryptocurrency is going to be allowed. There was a question, Dave, you remember this 6 or 7 years ago, was Elizabeth Warren and the worst people in government, are they going to allow crypto to continue? Are they going to just say that it's illegal? Ross Ulbricht was one of the early pioneers of decentralized blockchain technology. I believe they wanted to put him on a show trial for that reason, saying that, no, you must use the government-authored currency or else. But now President Trump has fully embraced cryptocurrency. I think Roger Ver, by the way, who also deserves a pardon, is kind of equally in that category. I'm pushing for Roger as well, because they wanted to make examples of, no, you must use our own monopoly on money. Can you comment on that? And also, President Trump has a crypto czar and wants to be the most pro-crypto president in history.
Yeah, it's really remarkable to me to watch Donald Trump's evolution on a lot of these issues. And Donald Trump is not without his faults, and one of those obviously is. Yes, of course. And one of Donald Trump's faults is that he has an ego, for sure. I mean, I'm guilty of the same thing as well, and I haven't accomplished nearly as much as he has in life, so I'm not knocking him for it. But even Donald Trump admitted that his first go-around, he just really didn't know much about D.C. And I do think that Donald Trump, in some ways, underestimated how vicious the swamp was and how many brutal tactics they had. And he got burned quite a bit in his first term. And I do think that he's shown an eagerness to learn since then. And he's gotten, as you were just pointing out before I joined you, he's gotten a lot better people around him this time. And this is one of the areas where the idea of like cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin, where he's really come around, I believe, on this issue. And I'm impressed with the fact that he's listening to smart people, which, by the way, as you remember, 8 years ago, this was one of the knocks on Donald Trump, that he doesn't listen to anybody and he thinks he has all the answers himself. But he's already kind of proven that knock to be not true. And so I love David Sachs being in there, and I think it's a very interesting dynamic. There's a lot of possibilities. Of course, as I'm sure you know, the swamp isn't defeated yet, and I'm sure they will be coming back at Donald Trump.
They're coming back.
But to your point, they're going to try. Look, a lot of the stuff they tried didn't work. and they've tried just about everything so far. But right now, I mean, there's going to be an attempt to remove all of the good people around Donald Trump. That's what they did last time when they got Flynn out and they got Bannon out and they got a lot of the outsiders out of power. But regardless, I think your point is spot on. It was always about protecting power, and the lifeblood of big government power is the money supply. And they wanted to make an example out of anybody who would challenge that monopoly. I don't think that's going to be happening under the next Donald Trump administration. Or the current, I should say. I called it the next. It's the current. No.
That is so smart. Dave, we are out of time. Please plug your podcast, your upcoming shows, how people can support you.
Sure. Part of the problem is the podcast. ComicDaveSmith.com is the website. Thanks so much, Charlie.
Dave, thank you so much.